All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Next on the Power. So I wanted to make a video kind of clarifying my stance on the quote-unquote bubble gut in bodybuilding and this kind of distension that we tend to see with some bodybuilders when they're trying to get a little bit too big. Now, this conversation really stemmed from the 2018 Arnold Classic, both because of the fact that Dexter Jackson had a little bit of a gut on stage. I made a video about it and people thought I was being too lenient on him. I want to address that in a second as well. But also the fact that Arnold specifically addressed the gut at least two separate times on stage at the Arnold Classic. He mentioned how he was proud of the guys for not having a gut and really kind of clarifying his stance on how he does not like the aesthetic look of the gut on stage. So Dexter Jackson at the 2018 Arnold Classic, as I said in my video, there's no denying he had a gut. There's no denying it didn't look good. And there's no denying that it hurt his placing. Did I like the way that his midsection looked? Absolutely not. So I just want to clarify that because in my video, people thought I was defending Dexter or being a little bit too lenient. But absolutely, I think he should not have had a gut. I think it should have hurt his placings, and I do think it was bad. Now, that being said, I think there's two different kinds of guts that we see on stage. Now, in my video about Dexter, I was talking a lot about his past and how consistent Dexter has been on stage in terms of the physique that he brings, the conditioning that he brings, and the size that he brings as well. Now, the reason I mentioned his past track record is because I think that's very applicable to discussing why he had a gut. So typically, the bubble guts that most people are complaining about are when a bodybuilder is getting too big. A bodybuilder is trying his hardest to get as big as possible, really push those limits with the drugs, the food, and that sort of thing that blows out the waist. And I think that's a different type of gut than what we saw with Dexter Jackson. So the reason that I mentioned his consistency is the fact that Dexter has never tried to play the size game. He's never tried to, become a mass monster. He's never tried to put on a tremendous amount of size. He's always been very consistently conditioned. His size has always been relatively the same. And he's never really tried to push his physique or blow out his physique to an extreme size. So that's the reason why I mentioned his track record, because I think the thing that we saw with Dexter Jackson was really some kind of fluke in his prep. I think the gut that Dexter Jackson had was really a result of some sort of sickness, some illness, maybe an issue with him carbing up, maybe the stress of the show. All of these things can contribute to having a gut on stage. So when people complain about this quote-unquote bubble gut, I think most people are complaining about it because of the direction that bodybuilding is going, with these guys getting too big, taking too much drugs, eating too much, trying to push their bodies to the extremes. And the reason why I mentioned that is I don't think that was the case with Dexter. So we've got to mention Phil Heath here. Phil Heath has probably been the number one guy for getting accused of the bubble gut, the number one guy getting hate for having a gut, the number one guy that people would point out as being the worst example of having a gut on the Olympia stage is Phil Heath. And I think a lot of people think the reason for that is because Phil Heath was trying to play the size game, knowing that Big Ramy was coming up on his heels. He was trying to get bigger and he was really pushing his physique to the limits. And as a result, his physique suffered. Now, again, I don't think that was the case with Dexter. I don't think Dexter was pushing himself to the limit and his physique suffered from that. I think, again, it could be a combination of age, stress, sickness, a fluke with his diet, just something out of his control. So when people are constantly demanding, a punishment for the bubble gut, myself included, I believe that the vacuum pose should be a mandatory pose. And if they do that, then guys with a bubble gut would not be able to hit that pose. And they would either, drop in placings, lose points, or just not place very well. Now, with that being said, you really have to break down what is the crusade against the bubble gut really about. They say we like these classic physiques. I'm a big fan of the golden era. I'm a big fan of the classic physique division. I'm a big fan of the small waistline, the V-taper, the vacuum pose, that sort of thing. But when we address the bubble gut with the men's open bodybuilders, what is the main complaint that we have, or what is the thing that they're doing that we're saying they're doing wrong that's causing this gut? And in my opinion, I think that thing is getting too big, taking too many drugs, eating too much, force-feeding themselves to get this big, blowing out their waistline. That's what's causing the problematic bubble gut that we're seeing with guys that are getting too big. And again, with Dexter, I don't think that's why he had the gut. So that's why I was more lenient on Dexter, because Dexter isn't a guy known for trying to get too big, not a guy known for having a crazy cycle, not a guy known for eating a bunch of food, force-feeding himself to get bigger. Dexter is a consistent guy. His physique has never been the biggest physique. It's never been the prettiest physique, but he's so consistently conditioned, so consistently lean. He has such a consistently good structure for bodybuilding. He's never really had to play that size game. So when we're complaining about Dexter Jackson's gut, what is it that we're telling Dexter Jackson to fix? What is it that we're saying Dexter Jackson is doing wrong? Because if we don't know what Dexter Jackson needs to change, I mean, what right do we really have to complain? So in my opinion, yes, he did have a gut. Yes, it was bad. But why did he have it is the main question. So again, that brings me back to the Phil Heath example. A lot of people are on that bandwagon of the Phil Heath bubble gut thing. The fact that he was constantly having this gut problem at the Olympia and still constantly winning the Olympia. So the fans were seeing Phil Heath constantly winning, constantly getting rewarded, and constantly having this gut. And this was really making them become disenfranchised with the judging and with the sport overall, that Phil Heath is now the representative of bodybuilding as a whole as Mr. Olympia. And I really do agree with that. I think Phil Heath's gut was very bad at the Olympia. I do think that makes him not the best representative of bodybuilding as a whole, and it doesn't really send the right message for the direction that the fans seem to want bodybuilding to go. Now, having said that, I was more lenient on Dexter because I don't feel that Dexter was rewarded for having the gut. Now, as I said in my last video, had Dexter Jackson won the Arnold Classic with that gut, then I would certainly see, I would certainly understand why people were outraged and, disappointed in Dexter. But again, Dexter Jackson is the 5-time Arnold Classic champion. As I said many times, I think he was the favorite going into this show. I think a lot of people within the industry thought for sure Dexter was going to have this in the bag. But he came on stage with a gut, and he took second place. So my opinion is this wasn't really a result of Dexter Jackson doing something wrong or taking a crazy amount of drugs or something even within Dexter Jackson's control. I think it was just an off day for Dexter. He was sick. Something went wrong with his prep to cause this and make this happen. So when I see a bunch of people complaining about it, my question again is, what do you want Dexter to change next time to not have that gut, assuming this was just some kind of fluke? So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, guys, about Dexter Jackson and why he had this bubble gut. Do you think it's a combination of the fact that he's 48 years old? Do you think it was stress going into this show? Do you think he's getting tired from competing from all these years without a real off season? Do you think it's a fluke with his prep, a fluke with his diet? Or do you think it was some sort of result of the drugs that he was taking, which I don't think is really the case? Again, he's 48 years old. I don't think Dexter is dumb enough to really be pushing or trying any crazy new drug cycles that's going to cause his gut to be blown out. So again, my question to you guys is, yes, Dexter's gut was bad, but what would you guys say Dexter did wrong? And what would you guys say Dexter should do differently to avoid having that gut? Because I feel like with Phil Heath, we can answer that question. We can say, okay, Phil Heath needs to stop playing the size game. Phil Heath needs to stop, taking this or that. Phil Heath needs to downsize a little bit, focus on conditioning, focus and tapering in his waist. But I feel like we can't really say, Dexter needs to downsize. Dexter needs to stop playing the size game. Dexter needs to stop taking the crazy cycles. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Please give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.